You didn't survive the Ice Age by being afraid of the dark. You survived it by putting the dark to work. Okay, here's what we actually know. Number 6, the simple answer. The simplest theory goes like this. You were exhausted, so you slept. That checks out. You spend all day running, foraging, hunting, hauling water, and dodging things with teeth. And then the sun goes down, and your body shuts off. The biology is straightforward. The longer you're awake, the more sleep pressure builds up, and hard physical labor speeds that along. Add a warm fire, a full stomach, and zero screens to stare at past midnight. And yeah, you sleep. Except the dark back then wasn't city dark. No streetlights, no glow from the neighbor's window. Pitch black, so black you'd hold your hand in front of your face and genuinely wonder if it was still there. And out in that dark, wolves, hyenas, cave lions. At night, a human being is basically a joke. No claws, no fangs, terrible night vision. A very scared, very naked chicken nugget waiting to get eaten. So the simple answer has a problem. Archaeologists keep finding long-term hearths, layer after layer of ash and charcoal, which suggests evenings didn't always end in a quick collapse. Predators don't clock out at sundown. Anyone whose full survival plan was everyone sleeps at the same time essentially invented the opening scene of a horror movie. Sleep was probably flexible, unevenly distributed across the group, which leads to an uncomfortable thought: someone had to stay awake. That gets us to number 5. Number 5, the night watch. Someone had to stay awake, and that someone had a job: keep the fire going and keep the teeth outside. Nobody romanticizes this. Cold ground, dying fire ears, scanning every sound coming out of the dark. Not glamorous, but deeply human and probably older than language. Here's something that makes it slightly less grim: watching moving flames actually lowers blood pressure and puts you in a state close to meditation. Hundreds of thousands of years of evolution trained the brain to read fire as the clearest message in the world: we're still here, and the fire proves it. And fire was a technology in the fullest sense. Before it, the day was simply over when the sun went down. Fire gave ancient people hours that didn't previously exist. Hearths at old sites show layers of ash and charcoal that built up over decades. That wasn't the occasional campfire. That was a long-term commitment. Someone had to tend it. Someone had to listen for the sudden silence in the bushes, the kind that means something out there is making a decision. Sleep could be staggered: a few people dozing while one stays alert. Even chimpanzees show nighttime vigilance. Humans are even better at coordinating it well, except maybe when it comes to doing the dishes. The fire pulls everyone into a safer perimeter. And whoever's awake with a few quiet hours and nothing urgent to do starts to change a little. And that's where things get interesting. Number 4, the midnight gap. This one's my favorite because it makes ancient people sound strangely familiar. The idea is that humans often slept in 2 separate blocks, with a quiet stretch in between. First sleep, second sleep. Historians have documented this pattern in pre-industrial societies across Europe and elsewhere, and sleep researchers have shown that people without artificial light can naturally slide into this rhythm. Not everyone, not every night, but consistent enough that it's probably not a coincidence. Picture it: the fire's low, it's cold, and you wake up around 1 a.m. Not in a panic, just awake. You check on the baby, put a branch on the embers, maybe whisper to someone stirring nearby, "Hey, you up?" Ancient DMs. That window got used for all kinds of things: tending the fire, quiet conversations, looking after each other. And probably for the obvious stuff too. Someone has to make sure the family line keeps going. No judgment. And if you've got nothing but silence and the crackle of a fire, you think, sometimes more than you'd like. That 8-hour sleep block we all stress about might actually be unnatural. A product of the Industrial Revolution: alarm clocks, factory shifts, rigid schedules that compressed everything into a single stretch. So if you wake up at 3 a.m. and can't fall back asleep right away, your body isn't broken. It's just running older software. And if you've got that quiet midnight window, with nothing urgent pressing down on you, you might start doing something with your hands. Something that leaves a mark. Number 3. Making things in the dark. You've eaten nothing is actively trying to eat you, and the fire is throwing a small, steady pool of light. That's a workable setup. Archaeologists find dense activity zones around hearths, flint flakes, bone fragments, where patterns on tools that suggest slow, careful handwork close to the flames. You can nap flint by firelight. Not comfortable, but doable. And most serious tasks didn't need much light anyway. Twisting rope, working hides, stringing beads. If you know what you're doing, your hands mostly lead themselves. And they took sleep just as seriously as their tools. At Sibudu Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found bedding 77,000 years old that was genuinely well-engineered ash on the bottom for insulation and parasite control grass, and reeds in the middle for cushioning, and a top layer of leaves from plants with natural insect-repelling properties. Organic bug-repellent mattresses 77,000 years ago. When the bedding got too dirty, they burned it and started over. Full reset. Spring cleaning, Stone Age edition. The occasional sliced finger from a fresh flake came with the territory. But the point is that the night could be productive without being dangerous, close to the fire, close to the group, not wandering into anything. And when you're sitting together, quietly working through the dark, you're doing something else at the same time, something humans can't really help. Talking. Number 2. Conversations by the fire. Fire does something to a group that open daylight doesn't. The faces lit from below the circle. The warmth draws the cold, pressing everyone closer. That's a stage, and it always was. Anthropologists observing modern hunter-gatherer groups have found that evening conversations tend to shift away from practical planning and toward teaching shared norms and storytelling. Firelight extends social time, and in that extra time, cohesion forms. I know they told stories sounds soft, like I'm tying poetry to a spear point, but stories aren't decoration. They carry maps, warnings, taboos, and instructions. They're memory technology. The better you told them, the higher you're standing. Which means content creator might genuinely be the oldest profession, except the hook wasn't a clickbait thumbnail. It was, dude, you will not believe what I saw in the woods today. Not every night was a fireside TED Talk. Sometimes it was probably just complaining that someone hadn't shared the good bone marrow. But whoever filled the silence, whoever kept people engaged, whoever held the group together, had a function. Picture someone telling the same mammoth story for the third time, and you can't leave because there are wolves outside. Sometimes the storyteller matters more than the story. That's how knowledge spread without writing. The night was the cultural internet. And once you have stories, you reach for bigger ones that need a bigger stage. That's when people started looking up at the sky. Number 1, stars, dreams, and everything after. Everything we've talked about, the fire, the shared sleep, the quiet handwork, the stories passed from circle to circle, leads here. Because ancient nights were also the moment when people started reading the sky as a calendar, as a compass, as a system that gave the world order. Not because everyone was an astronomer, because the sky was the biggest free display that ever existed, and it showed up every single night. There's real evidence that ancient people tracked celestial cycles, lunar phases, seasonal star rises, solstices. Certain constellations worked like seasonal alarms. When the Pleiades appeared at a specific position in the sky, it meant something: time to move, time to hunt, time to prepare. Deep inside cave systems, places you'd have no practical reason to enter without a clear purpose, people painted animals and symbols. Some researchers think parts of that art connect to sky observation or seasonal timekeeping. Is every dot a star map? Probably not. But the night sky was the most consistent pattern ancient people ever had. If you don't have a clock, you start reading Orion like, okay, when his belt tilts that way, it's probably around 3 a.m. And then there are dreams. Imagine living 40,000 years ago. Every night you disappear for a few hours, and dead relatives show up, monsters chase you, you end up somewhere that doesn't exist, and then you wake up with absolutely nothing to explain it. No wonder ancient cultures believed dreams were portals. For them, the boundary between dreaming and waking simply wasn't a boundary. The night gave you timekeeping, navigation, shared ritual, and an entire spirit world running parallel to the real one. That's the structure that turns a wandering group into something that lasts. Once you understand the night as a system, you stop fearing it. Cave nights weren't empty hours waiting for morning. They were workshops, watchtowers, theaters, and planetariums, sometimes all in the same evening. The dark didn't end the day. It reorganized it. Your body lives in a Wi Fi apartment, but your nervous system is still running Stone Age software. That's why rain sounds help you sleep. That's why you feel safer next to someone. That's why a campfire still pulls you in. Somewhere between the last ember and the first star, ancient people found extra time and turned it into culture.